Hi, I'm Jesse at Strobepro.com, and today I'm going to be showing you the Strobepro Insta-Frame Scrim Kit. We've got a bunch of individual pieces in here that allow us to manipulate light in different ways, so let's take a closer look at what each one does. Every scrim kit comes in this really handy case. It's got a top carry handle here, and that is Velcroed, so we just undo the Velcro, and this basically just flips open. So if we go like that, just hold it up so you can see, we have our silks, nets, and blockers in there, and down in these pouches on the bottom, we have our actual frames. So the frames will be tucked in there. So let's just go over exactly what we get in this kit. First off, in the pouch up here, you're going to have your first silk, which is a one-stop silk. And then you have a single net, which is a half stop. In the middle pouch here, we have our full black or blocker flag, which will not allow light to go through. And then in the end pouch, we have our double silk, which is 2 stops, and a double net as well, which is a full stop on there. In addition to those, which are going to go on the frames in a second, we have dots here. So this is a full blocker, and then we have a single net as well. And then we actually have some nice fingers here in that same diffusion as well, the full blocker and then a single net. And these are just used for like tabletop photography, or if you want to really isolate down a precise area. Then again, in the front pockets here, you're going to have the Insta-Frame part. And what makes this kit nice is that a lot of kits on the market have these frames and they are solid pieces that don't fold down. But with these, essentially, we just take off a little twist tie here that you don't need anymore. The frame is going to open up into position like that. We're going to slide our silk or our net, whatever we want, onto there. And it just makes it very convenient, easy to pack away and put back in the case when you don't need it. So we have 5 total of these frames, so you can use them all at once or just one at a time. So let's take a closer look at how to mount these now. Let's take a look at how we actually mount a fabric to the steel frame here. And before we do that, I just want to talk about which stand you should be using. If you want to make your life really easy, I highly recommend using a C stand. You have a really sturdy base, but the more important thing here is that you have our knuckles. So if you get the Strobepro C Stand, you have 2 of them actually, one up here and then one down here, because you need some way to attach the actual frame to a stand, and this is really the best way to do that. So if you don't have one, pick yourself up a C stand. Essentially, what we're going to do is just find the 3/8 hole in here, and every C stand usually has this, so you're just going to want to back that off, find the hole, the knuckle's going to separate there, and then once it's through, we're just going to twist that and lock it into place. From there, we're going to grab the upright, and you can see that this upright has a tiny little bit of play in here, and there's actually a little notch. So what we're going to do, bring that up vertical, and if you lift up, that notch is going to go over top and then sit and lock in place. If you accidentally forget and just put it up, you're going to know really quick because that's just going to flop right back down. So straight, lift it up, and then put it back in place. And then same with the other one, lift it up, put it down, and it's locked in place. You can do this if you want on the ground before you put it in the stand. It's just a little bit easier. It holds it into position. So now we're ready for our silk or net. So let's throw that on right now. I've grabbed a single net here, and this is indicated by green. All of the silks and the nets and the flag blockers, they're all color coordinated here, so these are industry standards, so you're not going to have to worry like which one is the single, which one is the double. You'll be able to see the different colors there. So what we need to do is turn this the right way, and there's going to be an opening in the bottom here, and that opening, and it can be a little bit tight just when it's brand new, is for the rod. So I'm just going to pull that apart and get it started. Before I push that all the way down, I want to come to the other side here do the same thing, open that up, and just get that started. Once they're started, I can kind of just go down one side and then the other side without putting too much tension. And you can see I'm behind the actual net now. But right here, we have Velcro. So you are going to open that up. And I find it a little bit easier if you just get it started first on the bottom. That's not going to be perfect, but then at least it holds it in place for you, so you can kind of open that, run your thumb in there, your finger, and then it's going to open right up. And then we can kind of just tack it along in a couple places. And once that is tacked into place, which I didn't do a good job on the first side there, we can go along, fastening the Velcro along the whole bottom. And if there's any wrinkles or anything, we can just kind of position that, but the wrinkles aren't really going to matter. And there you go. You have your net installed, and then we can control this. We can tilt it up or down, forward or back, just with our grip head, which makes it really easy. So I'll just lower that down. And the one nice thing about these as well is that they have a soft edge on here. So that's going to give you a really nice kind of transition if you don't want a hard line. If you were to use this edge, obviously you would have a big shadow come across your subject. So that's why we have this kind of just diffused edge on there, if you want to call it that. Now, we do have this tab right here, and this tab is designed to give the frame structure, but it's also designed so that you can prevent it from twisting. You might have your silk or your net or whatever turned up like this, and you're finding for whatever reason that it's tilting down. Usually that doesn't happen with these grip heads, but just in case, if you do need to lock into position, you can slide the tab into the grip head, lock it in like that, and then it's not going to twist. Just be aware if you do that and you need this rotation, you're going to have to control it up on the top of the boom rather than right here. So that's just a kind of extra bonus if you need to prevent any twisting. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I assembled all of our nets and our flags here just to show you what we have in the kit. So let's just quickly go through those, briefly talk about them, and then later on we're actually going to show you what each one of these does. So if we start up here, this is our single net. The reason it's called single is it's just one layer of the net fabric, and this actually takes off half a stop of light. So nets are used to reduce exposure. They're not actually going to change the light characteristic at all. It's just going to darken the scene down. So that's what a single net does. And then just like it sounds, a double net here is 2 layers of that fabric. And that's actually going to reduce the exposure by a full stop. From there, we can go down to a flag, and a flag is like a block out or a solid, it's often called as well. And that's going to obviously stop any light from penetrating through. So you can use flags a lot of the time if you want to create like a slit of light going across the background or the model, whereas the net is just going to reduce that exposure for you. So if you have 2 people standing beside each other, one's really bright and then the other one's a little bit darker, you could get that first person that's bright by netting them, and then it's going to bring those exposures more in line, look a little bit more natural. Now, speaking of all 3 of these, they're all the same size, so they're 24 by 36 or 2 feet by 3 feet. So you've got a nice big area to work with. Not only can you use those in the studio, they're great to use outside as well, but just be careful, especially here in a place like Calgary with the wind. Obviously the wind is going to want to take those, so you want to have a solid stand, like a C stand, with a sandbag weighting it down, just so you don't have any accidents. Moving to the top, we have our 4-inch by 14-inch finger, and that is our single net material, so same as this one, taking off half a stop of light. Above that, we have our 6-inch dot in the same material again. And then over here, we've got that same finger and dot in the flag material, which will block out all of the light. So there you have it. There's all of our flags and nets. Let's bring in the silks and take a closer look at those. Okay, so I've grabbed our two silks here, and unlike our nets that we were just talking about, which do not change the character of light, they just reduce the exposure, the silks actually will change the character of light. So generally it's going to diffuse the light, make it a little bit softer, but that all depends where you're placing your light, where the silk is placed in relation to that. So you're going to experiment, but we'll give you an example of how these work as well. So up on the top, we have our full stop, which is one stop silk. So you can kind of see my hand behind there. And then down below, this is a two stop. And so that'll take off, like it says, two stops of light. These are the same size as the other ones, so 24 by 36 or 2 feet by 3 feet. So they fit right in with the other set. So you've got the full set to kind of work with, whether you want to diffuse light, whether you want to reduce light or block it out altogether. You've got these 5 2 foot by 3 foot flags, silks, and diffusion to work with. Let's take a look at our nets, silks, and solid in action. Here's our bare, unmodified point light source. And here is the single net. The single net cuts the light by half a stop of brightness without affecting the character of the light in any way. Our double net cuts our brightness by a full stop. A net can be used to even out exposure between two subjects that are varying distances from a light source. I'm much closer to our light than Tracy, but we can cleverly position the net so that it just covers me. Next, let's look at the silks. The silks add some diffusion while also affecting the light output. Here's our single silk. Notice how the shadows have a bit of a softer edge, and the effect is more pronounced with the double silk. We've lost almost 2 stops with the double, but we can turn the power up on our light to compensate. That just leaves the solid, which blocks out the light entirely. You can use the solid to create some interesting framing lines in your image. Position the solid closer to the light source to give your shadow a softer edge, and closer to the subject for a harder edge. A solid can also be used for negative fill too. We have some bounce coming from the wall that is opposite from our light source. Positioning the solid here lets us surgically remove some of that bounced light. So there you have it, guys. That is the Strobepro Insta-Frame Scrim Kit. You can see all of the scrims, the nets, the flags that we have in this kit. It gives you a lot of tools to manipulate light, whether you want to diffuse it or block it out altogether or just reduce exposure. So be sure to check out that. If you need extra grip heads on your C stand, we sell those separately too. So be sure to check out all of those options. Until next time, I'm Jesse at Strobepro. Enjoy creating.